So thanks, Yofi, for this opportunity to present this paper here. And it's called Agency Model and Wholesale Model, Platforms Choice and Antitrust Issues. I'm glad that Kenneth already gave an introduction in these topics. And so this is a joint work with Ding Wei Gu. So as we said, these are two most popular business models that use, especially for e-commerce. And the wholesale model is a more traditional one, and we all know that in a vertical relationship background, okay, in our graduate training as economists. And then the agency model is widely adopted on online platforms. People call it marketplaces or whatever. And typically, okay, the merchant will be able to set the price and then pay a proportional fee. There are, based on the literature, the key difference of these two business models. Number one is the price structure. Okay, one is a fixed fee, the other is a proportional fee. Which there is another one which I call a move order, and this is what is being more emphasized will be in this paper. So, what is the difference in the move order? So I make a different plot than Kenneth. So in a wholesale model, the merchant will need to move first to decide the wholesale price, and then I call it the platform or retailer. He will set the final retail price. So one move first, and then platform is second mover. And then in the agency model, the platform here is providing important, you can say, information technology so that you can reach the consumer. So you are selling sort of a service to the merchant so that the merchant can reach the consumer. Without the service, he cannot, or it's very costly. And so the platform will collect a proportional fee, and then the merchant will, as a second mover, will start to set a retail price, P, and then pay a tau P which is a part of his price to the platform. Okay, so this is a vertical relation model. Okay, there's no network effect here. So the consumer will only respond to the final price, but not the price structure. Okay, so here there's no network effect. And so in this paper, we will do profit and welfare. Okay, comparison under general demand function. We will answer questions like when do the platforms and merchant prefer agency model over wholesale model, and is the social welfare consistent with the platform's choice? Okay, so let's say platform in the traditional retail sector, there may be some bargaining on the upstream and downstream and what business model to use. Here in this world, we have the platform is very powerful. They can decide what will be the arrangement of the supply chain, what business model to take, and we will see that whether it's aligned with the consumer's choice. And we will also have business model choice and the platform competition. So as Wolf already mentioned, there is an earlier case that relates to this business model choice about the ebook case. So by the time Amazon is the incumbent using the wholesale model, and the Apple comes in with an agency model. In that case, the U.S. Department of Justice is actually forced the ebook industry switch from the agency model back to the wholesale model, basically giving the pricing right back to the book publisher. We will have something to say with this case. Although this case deals with some collusion issue, we don't analyze collusion here. The consumer, there's also a more recent case about consumers complaining for Apple being the monopoly channel of selling apps, so the apps is expensive, so there's a consumer lawsuit for Apple being the solo distributor, seller of the apps. And then what Apple's argument is that he cannot be sued by the consumer because he's a distributor. He provides service to the app developer, but app developer decide the price. Because app developer decide the price, so I'm not responsible for the high price, right? So that's the Apple's argument. This is based on an earlier case, based on another platform, which is called Ticketmaster. So Ticketmaster at the time used this argument to successfully get away from consumers' lawsuit of high price, because it says that I sell concert ticket, but I didn't make the price, so I'm not responsible for the high price. I'm a distributor. So in the case is recent. There is a decision that the Supreme Court at least rule against Apple, says that the consumer can sue Apple, but it's not like he's win or loss, but at least they give the consumer the right to sue, which give a kind of a special, increase the disadvantage of the agency model. So Apple's stock dropped on that day after this decision, And so agency model is not a reason to say that I'm not responsible for the high price. So the monopoly agency model carrier, this platform are not, they face more legal issues. This has strong implication to other tech giants like Amazon or Airbnb, Uber. They all have this issue, okay? All right, so what we will do in the applied, theoretical analysis, we have several of these findings. Number one, under monopoly platform, we will say that switching from agency model to wholesale model, which is what we see from the Supreme Court's, from the DOJ case of the ebook case, it actually, number one, it hurts the platform, but also it hurts the social welfare. And there is a condition for it. We call it subconvex demand. Subconvex demand is a demand function that is less convex than constantly elastic demand. So under this condition, we show that actually switching from agency model to wholesale model will hurt both the consumer but also the social welfare. And then the platform and merchant's preference will be partially coincide, depends on the demand shape. Okay, so this is what we will see. And also under the duopoly platform, we will have the cases that actually, if you have platform level competition, having the case of agency model over agency model is actually better both for the platform and the social welfare. So basically you can say that using the agency model aligns the interests from the consumer side and the platform side, but against the merchant side. So this is what I'm going to show. So the key intuition here is, as a second mover, okay, so in the agency model, it will be the platform as the it will be the merchant as second mover, and then in the wholesale model, it will be platform as second mover. So platforms, the second mover's profit will be increasing quantity, okay, and this is one of the key features we're going to be derived using it, okay. So just mention one paper. So this paper is very related to the entire setup is very related to Johnson 2017 Review of Economic Study. And we have two new things added to it. So number one is we say something about the demand shape matters. Number two is we have a full analysis of platform level competition, which is his Johnson paper does not have. Okay, so the setup, very simple. So it's a typical vertical relation model. So a monopoly platform has a marginal cost, and then there is M merchants with marginal cost C, and they will just have a cool-not competition. And then the total market quantity will be denoted by the big Q, and the demand function is the general PQ demand. These conditions is to guarantee that the marginal revenue is decreasing, which is a standard. And the wholesale model will be a successive oligopoly, which is most of us are familiar with. So at the first stage, the M firm will decide the quantity, and then there will be equilibrium wholesale price. With this wholesale price, the platform will decide what is the final price, which on the other hand here is deciding quantity, but deciding quantity and price is the same. And in the agency model, the platform will move first. Okay, so the platform is the first mover, first set the proportional fee. And then in the second stage, the merchants will decide the quantity and then end up with equilibrium price and the quantity. And then platform has the power to choose wholesale model or agency model. So I will skip most of this derivation, but one of the things we know in this vertical relation setting is the double marginalization problem. So we may call it vertical externality. That is when you have two layers of supplier, then to raise the price of one supplier will shrink the whole market quantity. Okay, shrinking the quantity is hurting the consumer, right? So if you have this, two upstream firm and downstream firm, then the industry quantity will be lower than the joint profit maximization quantity, which is, let's suppose the merchant and the platform, they actually integrated, they will supply a quantity that is larger when they are making non-cooperative decisions. So with this feature, what we will obtain is a set of profit function like this. And they have the shape that's interesting for us to do the general demand analysis. So in the platform's profit, under the wholesale model, he's the second mover, okay? He's deciding the final goods price. His profit will be increasing in quantity monotonically. The reason is, if the entire, this is talking about the final equilibrium quantity, okay? If the entire supply chain will end up with a higher quantity, then it must be the upstream have to cut prices, okay? So from if the upstream cut prices and also the quantity and also the equilibrium quantity increases, then the downstream firm will surely be benefiting. So it's increasing function. But if the platform is the first mover in the agency model, then the demand shape will be a usual, U-shaped demand, because in this case, if you raise your price, okay, raise the proportional fee, you can raise it to 100%, then the entire market die, right? And then so it's a U-shaped curve, inverse U-shaped curve.
So, especially in the ebook case, I thought that the more, natural setting seemed to be like a differentiated product with price setting.
Uh-huh.
So,
okay. It's for the analytical convenience. We have this framework that will work for platform competition and even wholesale model versus agency model. There are some robust results using differential product per trend. But this is the framework we find out that can work for the cases. I have to say that it's not the ideal. Yeah.
I guess so whether you will be robust to shape to
differential product per trend, let's say. I will say some, but some of them is hard to derive for the condition. Okay. And so with the demand shape, then we can get some results. So we will have some Q here that can equalize these two, but profit under this two business model. So then, just based on the Q, we can decide what will be the platform's choice over these two business model. What we can show is the agency model, number one, will lead to a greater social welfare in the left-hand side case, which is the subconvex demand. So with the subconvex demand, then you can see the two equilibrium quantity will be to the left-hand side of the equal quantity case, so that, and also the agency model has a higher profit. So the supply chain will end up with an agency model, and then it have a higher quantity than under the wholesale model. So in this case, the platform's interest and also the consumer's interest is alike. You want a higher quantity always. And in the super convex demand, which is another case of demand curve, and then we will have the opposite. That is, the wholesale will end up with a higher quantity, and also the platform like it, and the agency model have a smaller quantity, and the platform do not prefer it. So is it, this is the condition we have for whether industry should be in agency model or wholesale model from regulator perspective. And how is it possible to test? It's possible, because the super convex will imply the more than 100% pass through. So if you increase $1 on the upstream, the final price increase more than 100%. So it's possible to determine it even in practice. So this subconvex demand, let me say one more word about it. So it's actually have a name called Marshall's second law of demand. So it means that when the elasticity increases in quantity, that means when the consumer purchases more of the product, it became more price sensitive, which is reasonable. Okay, then you purchase more, then you become, then you can respond more to that. When you just start the purchase, you may have to purchase some so that you're less flexible. So actually, in most cases, we believe the demand will fall into the class of subconvex demand. So the agency model lead to higher equilibrium output and greater social welfare, but not always. But merchant is actually, in this case, have a lower profit. So if there is if the merchant is complaining about the agency model, actually the regulator should be cautious, because in most of cases the platform and consumers' interests are aligned. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is the merchant one. I think I will just skip here. I've talked about it. So this is the conclusion from one of the major conclusions from the monopoly analysis, that is a regulator should be cautious in response to the merchant's complaint about the agency model. Okay? All right. So duopoly platform competition conference. Okay. So each platform is affiliated with M/2 merchants. And here we have, in this benchmark model, we have no multi-homing, which is the endogenous participation thing we are working on. Again, we believe most of the results can carry. So the competition between the two platforms, we will consider competition between two platform merchant affiliation. We call it supply chain. Why? Okay, so this is how it works. So you are thinking about strategically responding to the the quantity of the other supply chain, okay, the other platform merchant affiliation. So the reason is we could do, wholesale versus wholesale, agency versus agency, when you have platform responding to each other's proportional fee or responding to each other's quantity. But when you have agency versus wholesale, it runs into problem because they don't have the same move order, and then we don't know how to work on it. So we end up using the entire supply chain as a unit, and that you respond to the quantity of the other supply chain. So I will skip some of these analysis here, and especially talk about this wholesale versus agency model case, because that's the case where we believe may answer the question about you have a marketplace section and you have a direct selling channel section. That is, within the same platform, you have wholesale channel and agency channel, and then the consumer need to choose which channel to purchase from. So we don't find many analysis in the previous literature because of the move order difference. Platform, you cannot have platform response to merchant and merchant response to platform, and then it cause trouble. So we solve the case by
just to clarify. So you're considering in this case that the firm offers two platforms or two different models simultaneously, or
no. Here the analysis is two non-cooperative platform working, right? But I can allow this two platform collude, then there will be the same platform working on two business model, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the case we can work on. So, but you're still competing. The two channels still competing for consumers, but you can affirm as you have a big platform that's a organizer, then you can decide how to work on the two channels. So we solve.
Thinking the same merchants, same set of merchants.
Here I'm thinking two different sets of merchants, and they cannot all multi-home.
Okay.
And, yeah. So we solve the case by response to supply chain case, and then the equilibrium will be decided by the platform, the agency, the wholesale channel's best response, the agency channel best response, and then the joint quantity need to be the joint quantity condition. So we analyze the case. A platform. We can analyze a case like a platform operates both, and then this is the case like the two platform will be colluding, right? Okay, so that's this graph will summarize some of the result. Basically, here we need to consider three sub-game. You have wholesale versus wholesale, agency versus agency, and wholesale versus agency. So the platform competition, number one, it increases equilibrium quantity over the monopoly always, but we have this features. So here, far from here, which is as the most quantity, will be the agency versus agency case. And then within here will be the wholesale versus wholesale case. Okay, so agency versus agency always result in a high equilibrium quantity. The reason is about this move order thing. So under the agency model, the joint profit of the platform will remain the same, but under the wholesale model, the joint profit of the platform will reduce. Why is the case? Because I said if you assume the number of the merchant is the same, okay, big M. The number of merchant is M, and in the duopoly platform, we just divide it and half go to this side, half go to the other side. Then if you have the same number of merchant in the downstream, then the ability of committing to a certain quantity, certain markup will be the same. So if the platform is staying upstream, okay, then they avoid the competition for the final consumers. But if the platform, let's say the merchants under the wholesale model remain the same number, and you have one platform before, and now you have two, then this two platform will have a smaller ability to compete on high markup. So then this will cause us a stronger double marginalization problem, and makes the profit goes down. So you see that under the agency model with one agency platform with two agency platform, the profit function actually the shape is the same, but under the wholesale model, the shape of the wholesale model actually drops. And of course, when the profit drops, and then in this case, the result in the monopoly is actually getting strengthened. That is, the platform will prefer the agency model. Okay, we actually here does not need the condition. earlier we need a subconvex demand. Here we don't need the condition. This is the earlier case, and now once the profit drops in for general demand, the platform always prefer the agency model. So in this case, if we think about the first stage business model selection game, we have this result that is, number one, collectively is the Pareto, Pareto optimal result to have two platform using the agency model. And then about the private incentive, we know that if the other is using wholesale, you will always would like to deviate to agency. And then on this side, we need some weak condition, okay? And we're still finding the best sufficient condition for it that's interpretable. But we need some weak condition to allow this to happen. Then this will be a dominant strategy Nash equilibrium. So, but collectively, if this platform are colluding, and then they will always prefer agency versus agency than any other cases. Okay. Yeah. So here is we reach some conclusion. So under the monopoly platform, with the subconvex demand, the platform prefer agency, which is also socially desirable, and the merchant would prefer the wholesale. So the regulator need to be cautious of when the merchants complaining about wholesale, okay, of this business model, which is okay. So and then under the competing platform, the result actually gets strengthened. So platform will collectively prefer agency model, and then switching from wholesale to agency versus agency will improve social welfare. And then prohibiting the agency model actually will result in social welfare loss. So we are saying something against the DOJ's decision. And the wholesale versus agency thing we are still working on, and especially on the welfare comparison. But there surely will be some ambiguity, because if you see from this figure, quantity is the most important thing, right? So whether you have this have a larger quantity or this point have a larger quantity, there will be ambiguity. Here we draw a concave shape, but this is just for illustration purpose. So we don't have here we are still working on what's the condition that this will result in higher industry quantity or this will result in higher industry quantity. But we know for sure that this will be higher than this.